means it's between 9.50 and 12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us carry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't...
Across the UK. Good morning, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Lots to discuss this Saturday morning. You're waking up to a very different Britain. That is because Reform UK have now got 677 councillors. Without shadow of a doubt, Reform UK, the winners of the local elections that were held on Thursday. All the results are now in. 23 councils have been counted. Reform have 10 of them. They will probably be in power in others as well because they'll do deals with other parties where they're not the majority. 677 councillors. The Conservatives, though, down 676 councillors. The Labour down 186. So Labour are on 99, not even 100 councillors won from these elections, and the Conservatives are on 317. We'll talk to Patrick Spencer in a second. He's a Conservative for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich, the MP there, to see where on earth the Conservatives go. We'll talk a lot about reform as well as the show goes on. I want your thoughts on all of that. Also, Prince Harry, what is he playing at? Talking about his father's length of life, giving that bizarre interview to the BBC. We'll talk about that as well. Also, a little bit later on, could junior doctors go on strike again? Let us know your thoughts, whether they should or whether they shouldn't. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. We'll get as many of those on as we can, as well as calls between now and 12:30. So calls, voice notes, WhatsApp text messages, 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call. Lots to discuss. A big day. We're still examining the fallout of all of this, and I want your thoughts on all of it. As I say, 0344 499 1000, the only number you need this Saturday morning here on Talk. Well, let's just have a little look at where things are. The Green Party up 45 at 80 councillors. The Independents down 20 at 89. Labour, as I say, on 99 councillors, down 186. The Conservatives, though, whopping losses. Lots of Conservatives I spoke to said 500 would be reasonable. Well, nearly 700 councillors lost. 676 councillors lost, 317 elected. The Liberal Democrats did pretty well, up 163. They're at 370. But look at Reform UK. 677 councillors. That is the magic number. They also have, of course, 2 mayors as well. They have 1 new MP and a very happy man in Nigel Farage. Patrick Spencer is presumably less happy. He is a Conservative MP for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. Patrick, you're very welcome to the programme this morning. Thank you for doing the interview. It's not every politician in the position that your party is in that will speak to us, it must be said. They sometimes run to ground, so good for you for fronting it up. Patrick, I mean, what is your reaction to what has happened in the last couple of days?
Well, it was never going to be an easy election result. No chance after last year, just 8 months after our worst general election defeat in 100 years, were we going to do well? You know, people are very angry with mainstream politics. In 2021, the 2 main parties had 65% of the vote. That's now gone down to just 35% of the vote. We went from 36% to 15%. This is a rejection of all mainstream parties. Turnout is incredibly low. Look at Runcorn by-election. The turnout for that by-election, I think, is down 12.5%. So no one's voting, and people are really angry. And Reform do well in that situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All of that is correct and honest and fronting it up. In terms of the honest conversation the Conservative Party needs to have with itself, you're talking about, yes, mainstream parties, and we'll talk about Labour and the Liberal Democrats throughout the programme as well. But from the Conservative Party's perspective, yes, you've got the hangover of 14 years. There's no doubt about that, and the chaos of the particularly the last 5 years of that 14 years. But in the last 6 months, Kenny Badenoch just doesn't seem to have changed anything, has she?
No, that's not true. I think she's done a good job in very difficult circumstances. I've got a lot of time for Kemi. I think the answer to the Conservative Party's long-term chance is to get back to a place where we're authentic, we're honest, and we stand for the principles that many people up and down this country believe in. I'm just quizzical about a Reform Party that seems to be getting votes in the West Country, to County Durham, Lincolnshire, Kent. You know, that's a broad coalition that will be very difficult to maintain. I know the question of whether the Conservatives should do a pact with Reform are coming up. In history, political history, Peter, I know you're a political buff.
Nerd, I think is the word you're looking for.
Fortune favours the brave. Fortune favours those that are authentic, that are leaders, that don't try and cut deals. And I know, whether I'm knocking on doors in Suffolk or across the country, that there are loads of people who want to vote for the Conservatives out there. They desperately want to see a Conservative Party that stands for free markets, for freedom in our society, for a Britain that stands tall on the international stage. They haven't seen one for a while. But I believe if Kemi, and I believe she will do this, by the way, get a Conservative Party, a parliamentary party and a broader party back to that position where we are true to our values, where we're proud of who we are, where we are authentic and honest, and we've got a vision for this country, I believe actually we can get back sooner than you can imagine.
That is a positive outlook, certainly. You've used the words authentic and honest twice. Immigration, let's just take one issue, which is obviously a huge issue in our country at the moment. It was a big issue in these elections as well because of the big role that local councils have in regard to immigration, in regard to hotels, dealing with asylum seekers. The Conservatives said in 2010, in 2015, in 2017, in 2019 and in 2024 that they would get immigration down. They didn't. So how do you then come back to the electorate and say, we're going to be different this time, we're going to be authentic and honest and say we are going to deal with immigration, when the electorate may say, well, hold on a second, we've given you chances, we've given Labour a chance as well, okay, it's only been 10 months for them, but we've given you both chances to deal with this huge issue that everybody sees it's affecting our country, everybody sees it has an effect on public services, and you haven't dealt with it, and Labour haven't dealt with it. So we're going to go to the guys who tell us they are going to deal with it and keep talking about it and keep saying how they're going to deal with it.
Yeah, so let's take one step back. I think we should be really honest with the British public and say, actually, we failed on three big issues. Immigration, it didn't come down. In 1997, 75,000 people, I think, came to the country. In 2024, it was, just over 1 million?
Yeah. We
should be honest about those statistics. We should be honest about our failures there. We didn't grow the economy. living standards didn't improve. Productivity didn't grow. We didn't see a kind of explosion in our private sector, and then we didn't build enough houses. And our relationship with the British public will start with us fessing up and being honest about those failures. Now, I would say I completely understand why we lost in 2024, and I continue to understand why you are angry with the Conservative Party. But who runs this country is a really big issue. It is really important we select the right person to run this country. And let me just say one thing about populist leaders. You are seeing in America what happens if you let populism run the show. And frankly, the results are not good. But I have a lot of time for voters who want to throw in with Farage and reform. I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for the situation they face, because we did fundamentally let the British public down.
Which begs the question then, Patrick, if you're saying, and honestly, this is probably one of the most honest interviews I've ever done with a Conservative on this show, so thank you for saying, you're saying we failed in immigration, we meaning the Conservatives failed in immigration, Conservative failed in growing the economy, Conservative failed on housing. I agree with you on all of that. My point is, you can understand, you're being cautious about populism, you're being cautious about Farage, you're bringing in the example of Trump and America, and that's fine, and that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. But surely you can understand if you've been essentially lied to over and over again by the Conservatives and Labour, people will go elsewhere, won't they? And how do you get that credibility back? Because once trust is lost, it's incredibly difficult to get it back.
I think lie is a strong word. I don't think.
Well, promise things that weren't delivered, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get on top of the regulations and the legislation that would have allowed us to cut immigration. We didn't do the things on taxes and on the economy that we probably should have done. We did face, I would say, we faced two of the most existential crises to both our society and our economy, perhaps since the global financial crisis, but then before that, I can't think of one.
You're talking about COVID, presumably?
And Ukraine.
Yeah.
Huge issues. So, I'm happy to admit that the British public have a right to turn around to us and say, you said X and you didn't deliver X. Mm-hmm. It was not for lack of effort and lack of virtue, but there are no prizes for just being virtuous in this game. Mm-hmm. We live in an age where people want to see delivery, and we didn't deliver what we hoped to and what we tried to, and it will take time. But I think just on this, Kemi has been very good at not rushing in and saying, oh, no, we're going to cut immigration and we're going to do it really quickly and it's going to be really simple. She's building the party back up from the foundations. Mm-hmm. She's talking about principles. She's talking about the philosophy behind what a political movement is all about. I think that is absolutely right thing to do to re-establish the British public's relationship with the Conservative Party, but also introduce Kemi to the wider British public.
Well, let's hear a little bit from Kemi Badenoch and her response to the local elections. This is what the Conservative Party leader has been saying.
But we can't take things for granted. Protest parties.
Sorry, we have a slight problem with that clip. We'll bring it to you a little bit later on. But what she said is, we can't take things for granted. Protest parties are doing well today. I know that it's disappointing, but I have a message for all of those Conservative councillors who lost their seats. She talked about being sorry about them, said they're going to win the seats back. She says, that's my job now. Is she right to call Reform UK a protest party, Patrick?
Yes, she is right to call Reform UK a protest party. I'll go back to what I just said, which is I'm sceptical of a political movement that has such broad appeal as voters in the West Country challenging the Greens, all the way up to County Durham, down to Kent, and up in the Northwest. The turnout in Runcorn was 46%. In Lincolnshire, it was only 30%. Conservatives and the mainstream parties generally, I would say the Conservatives more than Labour, do better when turnout is out, when people are positive about politics and positive about the future and want to engage.
Well, there are many reform voters who, well, there are many reform voters, just finally, Patrick, who would say they're really positive. They're not. It's not just that they're angry with the mainstream parties, but they're positive about the change they feel Reform UK can deliver.
When you knock on doors, I know this is a preserve of MPs to always reference their kind of their life kind of knocking on doors.
I've knocked on a few doors in my time, Patrick. Don't worry.
The reform vote are broadly ex-Conservatives who desperately want to vote Conservative but aren't being given a reason to. There is a group that will always vote for Nigel Farage, but broadly speaking, most reform voters want to vote Conservative. They're Conservatives. They believe in free markets. They believe in a strong defence, the rule of law, amongst other things. But we're not giving them a reason to. And Kemi is absolutely right to say that they're a protest party. And what we saw in 2024, and I think what we're seeing today over the last couple of days, is people just staying at home and not voting. And that has allowed the reform share of the vote to grow. Okay. I'm not saying we should ignore them. I'm not saying we should turn our noses up at it. I'm not saying we should, be rude about reform or just, pretend like they don't exist. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we shouldn't lose our nerve and overread this. We should be realistic. The people are frustrated and angry, and we have to get back to appealing to the people who want to vote for us, but they're not voting for us.
Patrick, thank you. That's Patrick Spencer, MP, who's Conservative MP for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. And if there are any other Conservative MPs watching, be as honest as Patrick was in that interview, and things might go a bit better for you, would be my strong advice. The sheer hypocrisy and arrogance of calling Reform a protest party, says Jason in the Lake District. Leo in Ramsgate says, question for you and your guest. What do we know about Reform's appeal to young people? Are they a party of angry old white men not in tune with the modern world? Or is there a large chunk of young Reform voters who go against the myth that they're all socially liberal, internationalists and ultra woke? Young voters will determine the future after all. Leo, that's a very, very good point. Certainly they now have Andrea Jenkins, Dame Andrea Jenkins, who is a mayor. They also have a female MP, so they're not all men, certainly. Simon says, morning Peter, we have sat here for months screaming at the TV as we watch this god-awful government destroying our country. We look at each other and question, was it just us seething? Yesterday we got the answer. We are not alone. The whole country hates this government and the entire political class. The revolution has begun. Starmer, we want our country back and we are going to get it. Pack your bags, sunshine, you're done. John is in Dorset and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. John, what do you make of this?
It's unbelievable. I don't know what he's on. I was a Conservative for 54 years. I paid my subscriptions annually. I contributed to fundraising in the Constituency Association. 3 years ago, Tobias Ellwood described members like me as the right wing of the party. The party I have left for Reform was centre-right. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a mishmash now of First Nation, One Nation Tories. Nobody in there represents what I and a lot of people, I'm 81, that people like my generation recognise as a centre-right party.
Well, what is centre-right to you? What does that actually mean, John? What do you want to happen? In an ideal world, what would be your sort of two top priorities for government as someone who you haven't changed? You're saying your party's changed, or your previous party's changed.
Previous party changed. Small state, which was always a Conservative belief, and I'm a small C Conservative. Mm-hmm. I believe in looking after your family, paying your own way, and not encouraging people who won't work to indulge themselves. And we seem to have a government that's bent over backwards to meet any foible or
Do you know what, John?
wish.
Every single thing you're saying is resonating with me. I can literally I just feel what you've said is just connected with me.
Yes, but you see, Patrick's not going to get my vote back
as
much as he might wish for it.
I know.
And the thousands like me.
Yeah.
There is no Conservative Party. If it were a football team, I'm a big fan of Kemi Badenoch. I respect her as a person, as a politician. I think she's a woman of considerable integrity. Mm-hmm. And I hate it that she's got this poison chalice. And putting Jenrick in wouldn't change it. It's a bit like changing a manager of a football team that's doing badly. It'd still be a rubbish team.
But John, that core thing of what you talk about, I mean, Farage talked about this yesterday. I saw an interview he did yesterday where he just said, fairness, just literally just saying, you know, you pay your taxes, you do your job, you get up in the morning, or you've contributed to the economy, like I'm sure you have, John, throughout your life. You've lived a law-abiding life. Where's the reward for that? And essentially, Farage was saying that. Essentially, he was saying, we've got to get back to rewarding the people who do the right thing. And that is a simple but very, very powerful message. And I think it's going to resonate. Well, it is resonating. It's clearly resonating already. But I think it's going to resonate further, John. And I'm not sure. I thought Patrick Spencer was very honest there. But I'm also not entirely sure, with the greatest of respect to him, that he really gets it. Because this isn't just anger. This isn't just protest. This isn't just a reaction to the mainstream and political parties. What I think we've seen, John, and I'm interested in your view on this, what I think we've seen over the last couple of days and previously is people saying, we've tried the guys who told us over and over again they would do a certain thing and they haven't. We're going to go with somebody else now. And it's just very logical, I would argue, of many of the electorate.
Absolutely. I mean, there are those who ought to know better, seem to paint everybody in reform, and my wife included, as a bunch of right-wing, knuckle-dragging thugs with experience at all.
Absolutely not.
There, within our ranks, I mean, I occupied a number of senior positions in the Army and the Health Service in nursing, and there are a lot of people much younger than me who are able as managers in many facets of society. It's ours to lose. We have full control of 9 authorities.
I think it's 10, actually, yeah.
10, is it now?
Yeah.
Well, we're like the Argentinian president. I mean, we're talking about no working from home, making local authorities work for their residents.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, and I believe that there are enough reform people from all levels of management and the professions who are capable of contributing that, then it's ours to lose.
And very, very soon, John, they're going to have a record. They're going to make mistakes, but they're going to do things that people like as well. And we'll be able to judge reform, not just on what they say, but what they do. And that will be a very different thing. John, thank you. Appreciate your thoughts. Tim has been in touch and says the last 14 years of Tory government was not Conservative, but Lib Dem, high tax, socialist, pro-immigration. Fascinating fact there. I didn't know that previously, what Patrick Spencer was saying there, the Conservative MP we spoke to. In 1997, 75,000 people came to this country. 75,000 people, imagine that. Now it's over 1 million. That changes things. That changes how our country runs. What do you think about all this? 0344 499 1000. It's been fascinating so far. We're only 23 minutes in. We've got the debate desk next. I've got Philip Kisley and Benjamin Butterworth. Like politics in this country over the last couple of days, that is not going to be boring. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side.
Let's hear what we tried to play earlier, and we will successfully do this time, I have no doubt. Kemi Badenoch on her reaction to the local elections.
But we can't take things for granted. Protest parties are doing well today. I know that. It is disappointing. And I have a message for all of those Conservative councillors who lost their seats, how sincerely sorry I am for your loss, because I know how hard you worked. But we are going to win those seats back. That is my job now. We're going to make sure that your hard work was not in vain. Conservative councils did deliver better services for lower taxes across the board. Other parties may be winning now, but we are going to show, as with Paul here in Cambridgeshire, that we can deliver and that we are on course and recovering.
Kemi Badenoch there in Cambridgeshire. She was talking about Paul Bristow there, who is one of the very small chinks of light for the Conservative Party. Really, Paul Bristow is now the mayor of Cambridgeshire. That was one of the few things they really won and did well in yesterday, in a sea of many, many bad things. The 677 councillors, 1 MP and 2 mayoralties that Reform UK won. Let's hear from Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. He's saying this morning in an article in the Times that he gets it, he understands this, he's going to change. This is what he had to say.
My response is to say, I get it. We were elected into government at the general election last year to deliver change. We've started that work. Waiting lists are coming down, wages are going up, interest rates are down. That's all good for working people. But the message I take out of these results is that we need to go further and faster with change. People need to see and feel that change. That chimes with what I've been saying for a number of weeks. We're going to double down on that now, deliver the change that people need.
That's Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. He wrote in the Times today, he accuses Nigel Farage of offering easy solutions and ideological zealotry, but he also admits that he's not satisfied with his own party's record in government. He talked about further and faster change there. He wrote, most Prime Ministers would respond to these local elections with the same old excuses. They'd blame low turnout or say this is just what happens mid-term. I'm not going to do that. My response is simple. I get it. Am I satisfied with where we are? Not even close. I'm acutely aware that people aren't yet feeling the benefits. That's what they told us last night, obviously talking about the results. Until they do, I will wake up every morning determined to go further and faster. Well, the man who has done best out of this, although not a candidate in the elections, of course, is Nigel Farage. This is what he has been saying.
The Runcorn victory, it may on paper look like a small margin, but it's a huge win. Yeah. I mean, we've won something here in a safe, historic Labour seat, one of their safest seats in the country. And also, if you look at the results in Doncaster, North Tyneside that have come through already, you'll see 25, 26% swings from Labour to Reform. But at the same time, go to Lincolnshire, traditional, safe, solid blue Conservative county, and Andrea Jenkins has won that by a country mile. The message from the night is that we are now the opposition party in England, indeed the UK, to Labour. And actually, it was Conservative votes that stopped us winning even more. They were the ones splitting our vote, and that's the big change.
Nigel Farage there speaking to my colleague Mike Graham yesterday on Morning Glory. Well, let's go to the debate desk now. We've got Philip Kistley, who's a senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, who is with us. Good morning.
Hi, Peter. Nice to be here.
Good to see you. And Benjamin Butterworth, the political commentator. Great to see you in the studio.
Good morning.
So, the Reform Quick. First of all, let's go through those three clips. Let's talk about first of all, my question to you, Philip. Kemi Badenoch talking about protest parties. It's a bit more than that.
Reform are no longer a protest party. They are the party. They're the party of the right. I don't really expect her to say anything else. She's in a terrible position. It's very difficult to know what she can do. I thought she sounded a little bit panicked there. Well, she's in a terrible position. It's difficult to know what she can do other than resign, because she's made no impact. The problem is she's made no impact whatsoever. They were in a terrible place. Now they're in a dire place, and the future just looks so incredibly black for her. She's also got Jenrick snapping at her heels as well. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I want her to stay there because I really feel that I want the end of the Conservative Party, and that's a really difficult thing for me to say because I've been a Conservative all my life, but I feel as though they've just got nowhere to go. It's time to stop the uni party. It's time for I think we're coming to the end of an era. We're coming to the end of this progressive era, that the so-called progressive era that the Conservative Party could do nothing about. They couldn't handle it. They didn't know. They didn't have an ethos. They didn't have a philosophy. And now it's time for a kind of conservative revolution, I suppose, and Reform are the party to produce that conservative revolution.
Are we at the end of the progressive era, Benjamin?
I actually think we're at the end of the Thatcherite consensus, to be honest, because ever since the 80s, the argument has been it doesn't matter where it's produced, the only problem is that it's as cheap as possible and the market will decide. And actually, parties of both right and left are now saying we should nationalise things like steel and we should be more protectionist. But I do think we're at the end of an era. I think in terms of Kemi Badenoch, you're right, she had an air of desperation to the way she was talking.
I just think her tone was just a bit like, it's all going to be okay, everything's going to be fine. I just heard a little bit of panic in her voice there.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interested me about people that work for the Conservative Party is they've told me that she often is very nervous behind the scenes before she gives big speeches. Now that surprised me because she's in danger of seeming a little obnoxious at times. But also one Tory frontbencher told me the other day that she's been dropped in the deep end before she's ready for it. And actually I think that's quite a good point because although she'd served as the Secretary of State, she got a relatively easy ride in government because some of her trans views were popular with sections of the media, and now she's facing a much harder job and I don't think she's up for it.
Well, I think Leader of the Opposition is probably one of the hardest jobs in politics anyway, although Nigel Farage thinks that's him now.
Well, indeed, but Dan Hodges writes in the Mail today, and I think he's right, that the Tories have the question, do they want to wait another year for the inevitable getting rid of her? Everybody expects that to happen, or do they want to start turning the tide now? And, I think they will probably wait another year because they don't have a clue what they're doing. But helpfully for the Tories, they've got Robert Jenrick volunteering himself daily.
Well, he's the other, I mean, how many leaders of the opposition do we have? We've got Kemi Badenoch, we've got Robert Jenrick, we've got Nigel Farage. What do you think Kemi Badenoch should do now, apart from what you think she should stay in her position? But the Conservatives, it's interesting actually, someone was, a senior Conservative former Cabinet Minister was saying to me the other day, and saying that no matter what happens, the Conservative Party conference in early October, it will all be about Kemi Badenoch because the year will come up and you can't put those letters of confidence in before the year comes up. We'll talk much more about Reform and Labour as the debate desk continues, but specifically on Kemi Badenoch, how long do you think she's got, Philip?
Well, I really don't think she's got... I don't want to hold myself hostage to fortune, but I don't think she's got long at all. And just because it isn't really about industry, it's actually about culture. That's front and centre, and that's what I mean when we're approaching a new era. It's about identity politics. It's about mass immigration. And it's about deranged sectarianism. I think the Conservative Party needs to be able to deal with all of those huge issues because those are the issues. That's why people have voted Reform. Conservative did nothing about that for 15 years, okay, and people look to the Labour Party and they're terrified of what they see.
I don't know if you heard what Patrick Spencer, the Conservative MP, said to me a minute ago. He said that, fascinating statistic, in 1997, 75,000 immigrants to this country. Now it's over 1 million. We'll talk much more about Reform. We'll talk, of course, about Labour as well, and Keir Starmer, and get your reaction after the break. But you can use the break, actually, to make the call and let us know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss with Benjamin and Philip here on the debate desk in just a second.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just a look at Twitter there, and thanks to everybody who's been in touch. Alison says, Starmer was just all words strung together. What does he get? What is he going to change? What is he going to do faster? He won't tell us because he knows he won't like it. We won't like it. The same Ming Vaz strategy he used to deceive his way into number 10 in the first place. Disabled Rebel says, no, Peter, he only needs to do two things, scrap net zero and sort out immigration, but he won't. He is stupid. Another person on Twitter says, of course he doesn't get it. Instead of stopping his current drive to bring the country to its knees, he's going to speed it up and do it faster before he's kicked out of number 10. I mean, that's an interesting one, actually, Philip, isn't it? Because he's saying we want to do further and faster with the change. But the change that Keir Starmer has brought in is not really what the country likes, as we have just seen by the fact they've just lost 186 councillors.
It's like looking at a brick wall and saying, I'm going to go into fifth gear and accelerate. People don't want the kind of change that he's offering. What they want is change back. They want a Britain, a country, a culture, a society that, one, they recognise, okay, two, they feel safe in, three, they feel part of, and four, that offers something not only for their children, but is also something for their parents and grandparents.
These are radical ideas, Philip. Imagine people wanting that.
Imagine wanting these, and imagine being the Prime Minister and not being able to see that these very simple, traditional Burkean principles which underpin everything that's successful and brilliant about this country. He wants nothing to do with it. It's just more trans, it's more immigration, it's more of the usual stuff. And people are frightened of it, actually. He must know that people are frightened of this because the future is a really scary place at the moment. And so he needs to really, he's not going to do it, so there's no point me saying it, but he needs to change back rather than change forward.
Benjamin, we're in a weird position, aren't we? We have a government with a huge majority. 411 MPs were elected last June. 10 months in, or July, sorry. 10 months in, the wheels seem to have fallen off Labour's governing of this country. Would you agree with that, or do you think that's too unfair?
Well, I don't think they've fallen off in terms of the actual governing, because the party itself and the government itself is pretty stable and pretty focused.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
But it has arguably, it's already lost the narrative, and it lost that pretty quickly. I strongly agreed with getting rid of the winter fuel payment, because I don't see why ordinary taxpayers should give £200 winter bonuses to millionaire pensioners.
There are a lot of people who aren't millionaires, though.
A lot of the people who aren't millionaires, like my parents.
30% of retirees are worth £1 million or more.
What about the other 70%?
They're the richest generation. Well, they're still a lot richer than most of us. There are more people in poverty in the 20s than pensioners. Well, it's a fact. The richest generation in history is pensioners. But it was still probably a political mistake to cut it for the sake of roughly £1 billion, because it's kind of set this in motion. If you look at the results, in Doncaster, where it's the only council that they were defending has gone over to reform, but the directly elected mayor, Ros Jones, who had taken a different view to Labour nationally, was trying to use council funds to help some of the poorest pensioners. Well, she won re-election, and she criticised Keir Starmer when she did, saying that he must take notice. So there is some lesson there that maybe it's the policies they've pursued, like winter fuel allowance, that have alienated people. And I think there are lots of things that are making that harder now. It's hard to get people back once people have made their mind up. And there is the fear that maybe they've done that already, and the rest of the 4 years are going to be something of a slog. But I would also point out, something made me laugh, that Robert Jenrick, defending Kemi Badenoch, said, well, you can't turn around such a bad result as we had in 9 or 10 months. And I thought, well, hang on, how does that add up? Because you also say that the government is useless and must be thrown out. Well, I don't think you can turn a country round that was failing in 9 or 10 months.
Well, also, Labour's managed to turn around its fortunes in that space of time, so if you can do it negatively, presumably you can do it positively as well. Dawn in Epsom says, for all the mistakes the Conservatives made, I do not remember ever thinking that they hated the British people, as I do feel that way about Labour. Gary says, Peter, that Conservative MP you had on earlier, he really does just not get it. I'm an ex-Tory voter. I will never be one again. Sally says, totally support reform. Well done to them. Hopefully they will come to power to change things before it's too late. I'm a bit disappointed to hear they have reined back on their policy on migrant returns, which this country needs. I also think from some interviews yesterday that certain reform members need some PR and media training. Sally makes a good point, actually. You've a lot of people, there'll be people there perhaps not expecting to be elected elected, 677 of them. I'm sure many of them will be absolutely fine and very good councillors, but you've got Reform now with executive power. They're running things, and they're going to have a record to run on, rather, Benjamin, than simply things they say. It'll be things that they do and have done. You've got Andrea Jenkins there, who's leader in Lincolnshire. Now, I would say give them a chance, certainly, but there are a lot of people saying actually they haven't got a record.
Well, I think, you know, they will cause themselves more challenges once they're running places, right? When they have to make decisions, when they can't deliver on certain things, which is inevitable, and they'll be held to account for that. I would wonder how much that impacts a general election, because people don't tend to pay the closest attention to their local
what's happening in a council, yeah,
let's be honest. But, you know, they've said about how they won't let migrant hotels in places like Kent, a council they've taken and where Nigel Farage lives, so I imagine he'll pay close attention. Well, you know, I don't know how easy it is for a council to refuse the Home Office requiring them to put it there. They've said they'll slash spending, but, you know, what effects will that have on things like services?
Well, there are loads of different aspects that councils have to do. For example, social care. You can't not provide social care. It's a statutory duty. How much freedom do you think Reform will actually have to govern in these areas, Philip?
I think they'll struggle a bit, but if I'm just thinking about the Reform Central, I think what they desperately need is to sit down in a small room and do the quiet work of bashing out policy. Okay, I think that's where it starts. And if they do that, if they think about what they're doing, if they coordinate, then they can avoid some of these mistakes. We've just talked about the winter fuel allowance, for example. I know we're talking locally, not nationally here, but the winter fuel allowance, the context of it was pay rises for train drivers and junior doctors, wasn't it? So that was catastrophic, and it was a stupid, greedy political response. I think Reform working in the local areas, I think they'll do okay. There will, of course, there will be lots of gaffes because these people are completely new, and as you say, they probably weren't prepared to step into council tomorrow, you know. But I think generally, if they look at what Labour are doing and do the opposite, then I think they'll be fine.
Let me give you a bit more of a flavour of what our viewers and listeners are saying. Stuart in Perthshire says, "Morning, Peter. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if all seats were gained or lost by such small margins as Runcorn? It would certainly encourage people to get out and vote if they knew that their vote really would count rather than be one of a 20,000 odd majority." Well, Stuart, it's a really interesting point actually, because when you look at what happened in Runcorn, it wasn't just the 6 votes bit. I mean, that's fascinating. I love all that. I live for all that stuff as a political nerd. But in 2010, for example, in my part of the world, Fermanagh and South Tyrone in Northern Ireland, there were 4 votes in it between an MP was elected with 4 votes. That was just fascinating. Really, really down to the wire. But the point is, I think what we really need to look at actually in that particular election is the about 14,500 votes that Reform overturned. And actually, if you're Keir Starmer in Holborn and St Pancras, your majority is less than that. You know, you as an MP, your MP's majority is less than that, and you need to start thinking about what the implications of that are. Yes, okay, by-elections are a bit different, but they're not that different. Another person, Leslie, says, "Hi Peter, why not call it a protest vote? Voters are protesting against this woeful government and its leader, as well as the previous government who let us down." Leslie, I agree with you on that to a degree, but I think a protest vote or a protest party actually diminishes what Reform has done. Starmer, no, you don't get it, mate. You're a traitor to your people. Sold us out big time, says this person. And finally, Rachel from the Cotswolds says, "Peter, this is the issue with the Tories. They have a superiority complex. They think that only they can or deserve to run the country. They're completely tone deaf on how the country feels. We want Reform to win and run the country. They're not a protest vote." Benjamin, your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I mean, I think anybody who were to say they were a protest vote would be dooming the party they support for further failure, because clearly they're tapping into something serious. But whether they're a serious party, I'm not convinced, because at the moment they kind of have the Lib Dem opportunity of being all things to all people, and they've got a funnel for that. But when they have to start making decisions, it might look different. What I would say, though, is that we're seeing a fundamental splintering of the political landscape, because we're putting all this focus on Reform, who did remarkably well, better than expected, but the Lib Dems also took considerable amounts in the south from the Conservatives.
163 seats up, up to 370. I mean, they did well.
And from Labour, and polling had suggested that the South East was going to go more Lib Dem. But then places like Burnley, for example, saw Labour wiped out partly by Reform, but also by the so-called Gaza independence candidates, which are sweeping up some of those inner city areas and, you know, may well take further seats in a future general election. And so, you know, I've always supported first past the post because I like strong, decisive government. But when you've got a situation where 5 or 6 parties are in very close contention and you get results that are 6 votes apart, you start to wonder whether it becomes almost sort of luck of the draw on who wins.
It's a fair point, Philip, isn't it? Especially when you have a government that has the lowest vote share. I think, is it ever for a government of that size of a majority anyway, Philip?
Yeah, but I think things are going to change. I think people, as we get more desperate, as we go through the rest of the term of this government, as there are more catastrophes, people will realise that they have to get out and vote. They have to participate. If they, as I say, if they want a future for their children, they have to make damn sure they go about getting it. I think that's definitely going to happen. I think people, as I said before, people are frightened. And if you just talk about reform in relation to the Lib Dems or Greens, you're completely missing the point. This isn't that they've done well. They've done extraordinarily well. It's amazing what they've done. It is a political earthquake. So it's now we are thinking, absolutely, they are in pole position. They're probably going to be the government next time. We really need, if you're on the right or you're anywhere near the centre, we really need to think about how we support them and how we make that happen. And part of that is encouraging people to get out there and vote, have their say, because I think that will be good for Reform. I think it will be catastrophic for Labour for all of the reasons we've just said. They're fighting Greens, they're fighting the Lib Dems, they're fighting the pro-Palestinian lunatics, and it will be devastating for the Conservative Party as well. So I don't think, my point is, I don't think it's going to be neck and neck in the future. I think it's going to be Reform, but we need to help that along the way.
I think that's very wishful thinking if you support that politics. I mean, the thing is, I'd say this is a worse... I mean, Labour did really badly, I'm not pretending otherwise, but it shows a more significant problem for the Tories than Labour, insofar as Labour's done badly, but of course they do badly. They've had to make a lot of unpopular decisions. And
the point is they haven't had to make a lot of unpopular decisions. Well, they have, because they just have made some unpopular decisions. I gave you the example before, the winter fuel allowance versus junior doctors and train drivers.
Well, I think that's a ridiculous comparison, and also they had to
Why
make
is it ridiculous?
Because it's like £1 billion roughly saving from the winter fuel allowance, but the amount...
why bother then? Why make the decision to save £1 billion?
Well, first of all, the government's books were a complete mess.
My point is, essentially, that was the first thing they did. It was a catastrophic, stupid decision. It turned everybody against them, and then they were spending, drunken sailors on shore leave.
Well, that'll be news to Kemi Badenoch, who ran for Tory leader, saying you should get rid of it the first time round. So she's...
We're not necessarily supporting her. Listen, why don't we park this just for... Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Final thought, Benjamin, if you don't mind.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's worse for the Tories because Labour still has a space to occupy if it gets its act together, if it delivers on the things that it's started to try and deliver. Whereas the Tories, I think they're losing the space in the spectrum, and Reform will take that further.
That's a very interesting thought. We'll return to this. We'll hear from you as well. Nigel Farage has been out and about this morning as well. We'll hear from him. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Nigel Farage has been out and about this morning. This is what he has been saying, the leader of Reform UK.
We are going to be quite radical. Work from home, forget it. If you're a DEI officer, I suggest you look for another job. So things are going to be different. We can't wave magic wands. We don't pretend to, but it'll be a very different approach to local government.
That is Nigel Farage speaking to BBC Breakfast this morning. Let's hear a couple of voice notes, including from Phil.
Hi, good morning. You know, the Conservatives, they keep on talking and saying, oh, we've made mistakes, we've made mistakes. Well, I'm sorry, but they didn't make mistakes. They made choices, and they made bad choices for 14 years, which has totally messed up the country. They knew what they were doing, so don't come along with that old saying, oh, we've made mistakes. No, you made choices. Those were your choices. This was your agenda to fill the nation, or to make the nation the way it is now.
Thank you for that, Phil. Let's hear another voice note from Tony.
Morning, Peter. That Patrick guy you've just got on, you know, all these people, is it a protest vote? Why don't you just put it out to the Reform members and the Reform people that voted and ask them straight, is it a protest vote? Why are we asking other people to talk for us? I didn't do it as a protest vote. I did it because I'm fed up of every other muppet in government breaking their promises. Quite simple. And I'm sure there's a lot like me.
Thank you, Tony. Much appreciated. You can send in a voice note via WhatsApp on 0344 499 1000. I even did a little demonstration last week on how you do it, and then we got a whole lot more. John has been in touch and says, in America, I witnessed the rise of the MAGA movement, which rejected outdated, tired old politics. Trump's GOP, grand old party, different name for the Republicans, like Reform UK, reflects a people-driven shift, not party-driven. The Tories and Labour have missed this. Change has transformed America, and its impact is now hitting British shores. Morning has broken in America, and after Thursday, the UK glimpsed its first light of a new day, says John. There are other things I want to talk about on the debate desk between now and 11 o'clock in the next 5 minutes or so, but just a final thought on this, firstly from Benjamin, then from Philip.
Oh, on what? Like, what thought do you want?
on what people have been saying. Have you listened to the voice notes?
No, I have. I mean,
thoughts on this?
Some Reform's vote is obviously a protest because that's how people vote at this point in a cycle. But I think we have seen a seismic change, and I suspect you'll see a change in how Labour governs.
Okay, Philip?
I think people are fed up of what's happened over the last 15 years. I don't think the Tories were making choices. They were just letting it happen and doing nothing about it. From 2015, we've had activist insanity. It started with Me Too, then it went to BLM, then it was trans, then it was Hamas, then it was Green. All of those things. People are just absolutely sick of them. So all Reform are doing are responding to what people want. And if they carry on doing that, I don't see that as being radical. I just see that as just doing what they should be doing. If they carry on doing that, they'll do really well.
In the last 3.5 minutes before the 11 o'clock news, let's have a chat about Prince Harry, this interview that he has given. Benjamin, I think is extraordinary.
Well, I mean, it's extraordinary that he keeps speaking publicly, and he says, so he was denied the level of security that a working royal would get because he's not a working royal. I actually have a lot of sympathy with that because the level of threat he can't escape, you know, whether he's doing jobs or not probably doesn't affect whether some ISIS bloke wants to kill him, right? I suspect that threat is just as high. So I have sympathy with him. But he gave this interview saying my dad, the king, could change this if he wanted. He could remove the barriers to it. And he says, I want to reconcile with my dad and I want to reconcile with some of the members of my family. But then there he is, sitting on a major interview that makes every front page today, revealing family information, such as he says, I don't know how long my dad has left.
And that he's not talking to him, and he wrote the book, and the Oprah interview, and on. I mean, it just fascinates me that he says, oh, I want some reconciliation, and I've forgiven them. I've forgiven them.
I was going to say,
have they forgiven you?
Yeah, I mean, the one word that was missing there was sorry, wasn't it? I mean, this is the most privileged man in the world.
But it's an establishment stitch-up. I mean, you're literally the king's son. If you're not part of the establishment, I'm not sure who is.
Yeah, but his passive aggressiveness on a monumental scale. It's not only that, there's the threat of another book behind it as well. There's all these kind of semi-spoken or unspoken threats of, you know, we've had all of this, we've had all of that, and you think to yourself, my God, there's going to be another book. here. So he just needs to say sorry. More than anything, he just needs to grow up.
Do you think he will?
I think he has a victim complex, and that's holding him back from being able to be a serious person they can engage with. Look, no one likes to see a family break down, and they are ordinary people behind this. But if you've had your privacy invaded so much that your son reveals private details at your father's funeral, as they did about the late Prince Philip, I mean, that's going to be pretty uncomfortable for you. And I think that, I think he should get the security, incidentally. I think it's justified, and I think it's slightly petty given that he offered to pay for it himself. But the idea that his dad, the king, is going to reconcile after this, I don't think so. Although it is reported today that the king has claimed that he was interested to speak with Harry until he gave this interview. I mean, he does keep giving interviews that I suspect is the opposite of what senior members of the royal family that treasure the bit of privacy they have want him to do.
Thank you both very much indeed, the journalist Benjamin Butterworth and Philip Kisley, who's a senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Great to have you on the debate desk this morning. A very meaty discussion there. Let me know what you think of all that Philip and Benjamin have said, not just about Prince Harry, of course, but also about the politics of the day. It's a fascinating time in politics in this country, and we're going to talk more about that as the show goes on. We're also going to talk in just a few minutes to Scarlett Maguire. She's a pollster and founder of Merlin Strategy, and about Prince Harry as well. I want your thoughts on this. Tell me what you think. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can send me a voice note or a text, 87222.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Loads to discuss between now and 12:30, including the reform quake, the major change that is happening in UK politics. We'll talk to Scarlett Maguire in a second. She's a pollster, the founder of Merlin Strategy. You've been getting in touch a lot on this as well. I want your thoughts on this and Prince Harry and the possibility of a junior doctor's strike. That's in the news as well today. Another one. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV or follow me at Peter Cardwell. The main number does three things. You can give me a ring, you can send me a voice note, you can do that through WhatsApp. You can also send me a text message through WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss. I want to get your voice on the air, so do give me a shout here on Talk. Thanks to Angie on Twitter, who says, Prince Harry, my mother has a saying, you make your bed and then you lie on it. He needs to grow up and stop being a victim. Tony, the voice note from Tony has got a reaction from a Spurs fan on Twitter, who says, Tony speaks for the majority. We've had enough of all the Muppets in government. Muppets is a word of the day. Les says, morning Peter, excellent show as usual. Starmer won't change and neither will the Conservatives. Labour is far left and the Parliamentary Conservatives are primarily Lib Dems. That's why there is no way back and the Conservative Party is finished. They can't ideologically offer an alternative to Reform UK, so good riddance, I say. Also, another person, British Empire on Twitter, says, Jenrick supports net zero and so do all the Tories. It's over for them. Tory voters need to wake up and realise it's over for them. They should have stuck with Liz Truss. Sunak was the beginning of the end for them. Angela says that she really enjoys hearing Philip Kisley this morning talking truth and hard facts regarding the Conservative Party. Just on Prince Harry, quite a number of people getting in touch, including Rusty, who says, you said what little privacy they have. I'm sorry, but when you own nearly everything in my country and not everybody else's, unelected, like most of our recent prime ministers, it's not acceptable to moan about privacy, says Rusty. Another person says, can Prince Harry pay for his own security? He must be earning enough to be able to afford it. He can, but the point is, and the point that he would make, and I think has been lost in perhaps a little bit of this, is that he says he would pay for the security, but the officers, the police officers doing it, they would have much more access to intelligence, to briefings, and so on, in a way that private security would not. So it's a very, very different discussion. We'll actually talk to a former head of Royal Protection, Di Davies. He's coming on a little bit later on. Amanda also says the biggest problem Prince Harry has is Meghan. So lots of discussions and thoughts on that. Keep them coming in. We'll take some calls. I just want to take one more voice note actually before we get to Scarlett Maguire. This is from Lee in Steeple Morden. This is what
Hi,
Lee
Peter,
has to say.
It's Lee from Steeple Morden here. Now, while it's been a fantastic result for Reform yesterday, when you looked at the attitude and the way Keir Starmer presented himself, he didn't care. And I think one of the reasons why he didn't care and what hasn't really been taken into consideration is, despite Reform having over 600 councillors, when you still consider how many Labour councillors are in England, which is just over 6,000, Reform still unfortunately have a paltry amount in comparison to that. It's only, what, 10% of what Labour currently have. So that's probably why Keir Starmer doesn't really care and is still pushing his agenda further and faster. Well, how that's going to end up for us, who knows?
Very, very interesting points there, certainly. I think as well, I mean, you're right, there are many, many more thousands of councillors, but of the seats yesterday, certainly Reform won so many of them, 677 won by Reform. Liberal Democrats did well as well. That's part of the story of this. 370, they're up 163. The Conservatives down 676 councillors. They have 317 won yesterday. Labour didn't win even 100 councillors yesterday, just under that 99. They're down 186. Independents down 20 at 89, and the Green Party up 45 at 80. They'll be pleased with that as well. Let's speak to Scarlett Maguire. She's a pollster and founder of Merlin Strategy. Scarlett, great to have you on the programme. In terms of the focus groups, I know you run and have run for a long time now, Scarlett. Did this come as a shock to you in any way, or was it just in line with what you thought was going to happen?
I think the direction of travel was certainly in line with what I thought was going to happen. We expected these to be a very good night for reform and a bad night for the two main parties. In fact, continuing the trends from the general election, where the two main parties, yes, we got a big Labour majority, but the two main parties recorded their joint lowest share of the votes they'd ever had. So if you add them two together, and we're seeing those trends accelerating. The scale of it, I was surprised by. I did not expect reform to win 10 councils, the control of 10 councils. I don't think reform were expecting to win 10 councils. And then I think just how bad it was for the Labour and the Conservative Party as well. Yes, we were expecting it to be bad. Yes, Labour and the Conservatives were trying to prepare the press, the public, for it to be a poor night for both of them. But it's been a truly, truly terrible night for the two traditional main parties in British politics. And I think we're watching something very big happening.
I just want to go back to what Keir Starmer has been saying on this and get your reaction to it. Let's just play the Keir Starmer clip.
My response is to say, I get it. We were elected into government at the general election last year to deliver change. We've started that work. Waiting lists are coming down, wages are going up, interest rates are down. That's all good for working people. But the message I take out of these results is that we need to go further and faster with change. People need to see and feel that change. That chimes with what I've been saying for a number of weeks. We're going to double down on that now, deliver the change that people need.
Does he get it, do you think, Scarlett? Certainly in relation to the people you speak to, you poll, the focus groups that you're doing. Is that message from Keir Starmer? He talked there about interest rates, he talked about wages being up, he talked about how life is getting better for working people. Well, clearly they're not grateful to the Labour Party in this election, if that is indeed the case.
Look, the change part is absolutely correct. He is correct to say that voters were voting for change in July and that are still very keen to see that change and do not feel like they are currently in their areas and in the country as a whole, in their personal lives too. However, I still feel like potentially Labour don't quite understand the urgency and the impatience with which people want that change. There was a real sense, I feel, from when Labour first came to power back in July, much like the Conservatives before them, that they felt that small incremental changes in the right direction, obviously we didn't even always have that, but small incremental changes in the right direction would be enough for people to sort of rediscover their old party loyalties and to stick with politicians and give them another chance. I don't think that's true. I think people are looking for something much more radical than that.
Speaking about that radicalisation, that idea that some people call this a protest vote, some people call this populism, some people say that there is an influence from America as well. I know you spend a lot of time in America with your work, you talk to a lot of people there, you do focus groups and polling there. How are there parallels there? Is this an infectious thing? Are people looking to Trump and seeing what's happened there? How much of an influence is this having in your estimation, Scarlett?
I think it's less that it's influenced by it and more that it's from the same causes. It's from the same impatience with how things have been run and the sorts of people that the sort of developed Western world has left behind and the sorts of voters it's left behind. And then you can see parallels with the Brexit vote, with Trump, with what's just happened in the UK and indeed what's been happening all over Europe in the last few years as well. So I'm not necessarily sure whether it's influenced by it. I mean, one thing I did notice when Trump first came to power was that there were lots of voters here that said, well, I might not like him as a person, I might not necessarily like everything he's doing, but at least he is doing something. And even though Trump has become more toxic with the British public since then, again, mostly due to foreign policy, to tariffs and to some of the comments made from the White House generally, I think there is still a sense amongst British voters. And indeed, I saw that there was a Labour MP writing for the Telegraph today who said that actually Keir Starmer could learn something from Trump's playbook in those executive orders, in just getting things done. Now, we do not have executive orders in this country, but again, it's addressing that desire for big change delivered quickly. And voters, I think, no longer want to hear about politicians' intent to deliver change. I want to see them do it.
Yes, and I think I agree with that, and I also think it's about honesty as well. We had a very interesting, I thought anyway, interview with Patrick Spencer, Conservative MP earlier, who said we need to be honest, we need to regain people's trust. But getting that trust back, and you poll on trust all the time, getting that trust back, especially if the trust is lost and the narrative kind of moves on a bit, for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people from these mainstream parties, is there a way back? And just assess where things are for the Conservative Party at the moment, Scarlett.
You're absolutely right. Trust in politicians is at an all-time low. Now that might not surprise your viewers. I'm sure they're feeling. I'm sure they're feeling that way.
They feel that. I hear it every day.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So no, trust at politicians is an all-time low, and that is very, very visible. You'll see it with your callers, you'll see it in focus groups, you'll see it in polling. And I think it spells really big trouble for both main parties. The Conservatives, that trouble right now is more acute. I think the Conservatives have been left fighting not just for their political relevance, but even for their existence at the moment. So yes, there's a lot of talk about how we're in this now multi-party political system, which we absolutely are, and the results yesterday point to that. However, there is a real risk for the Conservatives that they are supplanted by Reform. Not just that they're fighting neck and neck with them in a difficult position in various constituencies, but that they are completely overtaken by them on the sort of political right, if you can call it that, of this country. So the Conservatives, it's more acute. However, if I was Labour, and I thought this, and I said this to Conservative MPs if I was on panels with them back in Tory Party conference in October, both parties, I don't think, should be that happy with the other party doing badly, which sounds like a funny thing to say, but it's because people are so cross with mainstream parties. Actually, they want to see, if you were in one of those parties, I think you'd want to see that people can still have faith that traditional politics can deliver for them. So I think both of them could be losers.
Yeah, it is a losing position for so many of them. If you think about the councils as well, 18 councils that the Conservatives held yesterday out of the 23 that were up for election there. 18 of them lost. We also have no overall control winning. They're a sure bet anyway. If you want to put a bet on the no overall control party, they've done well in the last little while. There is a real fragmentation here as well. I wonder if I could talk about Farage as a person, about Nigel Farage, because there are loads of people who really, really love him and think he's amazing. I certainly think he is a brilliant communicator. I think he's the most consequential person in UK politics in the last 15 years. But there are people who really, really don't like him as well. He has net disapproval ratings from many people as well. How will that play in as things go on, as they become a much bigger party, as things change for them, as the record comes in as well? You start talking and thinking about what Reform UK have actually done rather than what they're saying. They've got executive power now for the first time, Scarlett.
There's lots to unpack there. I think firstly on Farage, you're absolutely right to point out the polarising nature of him as a figure. One thing I will say is that I think he is less polarising than he has been. So not only is he more popular than he has ever been, which is right, but I think he is less polarising and less existentially scary to quite a lot of voters. And there's a couple of things I think in last night's, or night before rather, results that point to that. For example, I think Labour's inability to squeeze the Green vote in Runcorn and Helsby, in fact, it grew in that constituency by percentage terms, not by raw terms, since that shows that the idea that I think you could successfully unite the left around a Stop Farage coalition, which I think is giving quite a lot of people hope, might not necessarily play out if he's not seen to be as terrifying to some voters as he used to. We'll see. That might, we'll see how that develops over the next few years. But I definitely think he is less potentially demonised than he was, even though you're right, he is still repellent to quite a lot of the electorate. But I think you can see the seeds for that to change. And then I think on your point about the fragmentation and then what that means, I do think it's quite, we're in a new position. If you're having elected mayors winning with a quarter of the vote, that is not necessarily a great place to start executive rule. And I think that's going to be something that challenges all parties, including Reform, over the next few years. And then in terms of Reform actually now being in charge of things, I think it will make a big difference to them that they have elected figureheads. They are now also, as you say, going to have to actually run things. So it'll be an interesting test to see how they do. However, I think they will still be held to a lower bar than the main parties and the governing party, Labour, in Westminster. And the reason why I say that is we've seen this happen even on a larger scale. So, for example, in Wales or in Scotland with devolved administrations, they are normally held less to account than the governing party in Westminster when it comes to general elections. So they stay in power despite people in Wales's unhappiness potentially with their everyday life. Likewise, SNP in Scotland up until this year in the general election where they did suffer. So I do think they still won't be held to quite as high a bar as, for example, the Labour Party now.
Very, very interesting stuff, Scarlett. Thank you. That's Scarlett Maguire there. She's a pollster, the founder of Merlin Strategy. Appreciate her thoughts on that. We'll get your thoughts in just a minute here on Talk.
The thing is this, if he was coming over to visit his father, the king, he would get royal protection because he'd be going to the royal estates, so he would be absolutely fine. If he was coming to do proper business, like a state visit, although he's not a working royal anymore, again, there are provisions made from that. But he decided to go be a private citizen in a different country. So if he can now demand legally to have armed protection, then what's stopping Beyonce from doing the same? What's stopping Richard Gere from saying he needs the same? I need my people to carry guns. And he wants the tax, well, he doesn't want the taxpayer to pay for this. He's like, well, I would pay you back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Paddy in Coulston in Wiltshire, who has sent us a voice note. You can do this through WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. Paddy, take it away.
Good morning, Peter. Patty from Coulston here. Your Conservative guest is living in cloud cuckoo land. We are voting reform because we're absolutely disgusted at the Conservatives. We don't want to vote Conservative. We are sick to death of them. 15 years and they haven't actually changed. We're still getting no action from them at all in terms of what they will do. We're just thinking about it all the time. They've had all these years to think about it. They lied to the electorate. They didn't enact Brexit properly. They've let in millions of people. They haven't built a reservoir. They haven't sorted out the water companies to give us clean water. They just sat there. They'd been so used to the EU running our country that they thought that they'd forgotten how to look after a country. And he talks about populism and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is doing exactly what he promised his electorate he would do. So why your Conservative guest would think that's in any way wrong, I have no idea. I'm saying I will never vote Conservative again. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Paddy, really, really interesting thoughts there. I've written a number of those points down. And Stuart has given me a ring from Lancashire. Stuart, I understand you lost your seat to Reform, is that correct? You were a councillor?
I did. Thanks for taking my call, Peter. I mean, what Paddy said just there is absolutely true. As a Conservative most of my life, I'm very disappointed in the party.
So just to say, you were on a council in Lancashire then?
I was a county councillor, yes.
You're a county councillor. And how long were you a county councillor for?
6 years.
6 years, okay. So what have you seen change in that 6 years? That's been a really, really big period of change for the Conservatives. What went wrong for you yesterday, do you think?
I just don't think the party will listen. I've been listening to the general public for a long time. You know, we've had 14 years of Conservatives in Parliament, and they just didn't listen at all. And then people voted for change, and they got Labour, which now they don't like. And we've got the Reform come along. And I keep telling my colleagues this is not a protest vote this time. This is something totally different. I think it's a sea change within the whole country, and we see what's happening in America with Trump. I'm not saying Nigel Farage is a Trump, but it has affected the whole country, that he delivers on what he's saying he's going to do, and we haven't done that at all. We have been, to be perfectly honest, hopeless. And I just despair, to be honest. I mean, I've worked hard for 6 years and just lost my seat straight off. You could tell on Thursday it was all over, so...
Could you tell before that, Stuart, when you were on the doorstep talking to people?
I did, yeah. You could just sense...
What did they say to you when you had those kind of discussions? You said, look, hi, I'm Stuart, I'm your councillor. You know, I've been trying to work hard for you, but you must know, and I know every candidate for every party knows, I'm sure you had some sort of personal vote, Stuart, but it's mainly about your party, isn't it?
Definitely. The thing what does worry me slightly is that I'm not so sure whether people voted for the candidate or they voted for Nigel Farage.
Okay.
That's my only concern.
Okay.
That I was there for 6 years doing my best, filling the potholes, helping charities, I was also the mental health champion for Lancashire as well, so I gave a lot of money to local charities for that. But it's just a bit disappointing, and what can I say?
Well, you clearly understand people's frustration from the top of the party. I mean, do you think Emmy Badenoch is the person who should be the leader of the Conservative Party, or can anybody lead the Conservatives out of the problems that they're having at the moment?
In all honesty, no, I don't. I don't think she is. I don't think Robert Jenrick's the answer. I'm not sure whether we've got someone within our 120-odd MPs who are up for it. To me, they're all a bunch of wet lefties or liberals. I'm just so disenchanted with the whole lot of them. I mean, to coin the Spanish phrase, someone needs to grow a pair of cojones to get a grip of the country, which I think was what reform will do. I mean, Lancashire's, they've got, I think, 53, they've got 53 councillors, so they've got total control of the council.
Yeah.
So let's see. I do fear slightly for the officers, I have to say, because they're in for a real shock.
Yeah.
Because we did do a good job.
Well, it's interesting what Farage certainly has been saying this morning, that there's a lot of change coming. I mean, Stuart, what about you? What's your political future? Will you run again? Would you run for the Conservatives, or perhaps even join Reform?
I'm done now, Peter. I got a home in South Africa. My girlfriend's there, so I'm going to go.
You're going to actually leave the country and go and
leave, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not because of that.
No, it's your personal circumstances. Yeah.
It was going to happen at some point, but I think this has sort of brought it forward a couple of years, because I can retire. I'm 65. I can retire in a couple of years, so it's brought it forward to do that. And I'd rather be with her than here.
What's your sort of primary emotion today, Stuart? Is it frustration, annoyance, dejection, anxiety, or is it? Have you any hope for the party that you've served for 6 years, and I'm sure been a member of for longer than that?
In all honesty, Peter, it may sound strange, but it's a sense of relief that it's over, and I can get on with my life now. I've worked really hard for the last 6 years. I did work for the local MP as well for 10 years, so that ended last year as well.
Yeah.
So it's just, for me, it's just a change of life now. I've done my duty to the country for 10 years in politics, and I need a change.
Yeah.
And it's quite nice to come out today, because you worked in politics too, to come out, do a bit of shopping and just relax for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. No, you need that as well, because as the first politician I ever did work experience for was an Ulster Unionist in Northern Ireland, a guy called Danny Kennedy, and he told, a great guy, we're still friends, and he said politics is addictive and there's no known cure. So perhaps the South African politics will be of interest to you. Stuart, you've spoken very honestly, and I really, really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best. And there are, I think people forget that this isn't just numbers. There are people with personal stories that are very disappointed, or indeed very excited and elated and looking forward to the future today. So thank you, Stuart. I appreciate the call.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. Thanks, Peter. Great show, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers.
Let's hear a voice note from Adam.
Money off old people.
Hi, Peter. I am fed up of people, the criticisation of reform. Oh, it's a protest party, it's this, that and the other. Okay, well, if it is, people are going to vote for it anyway, because we're fed up of Conservatives and we're fed up of Labour. Conservatives more so, but we all know, we can see what Labour have done in their short term. It's over for the big two parties, and bring on reform, and let's hope reform stick to what they're going to do, because if they don't, they'll get kicked out as well. But at least they're giving us a bit of hope. Anyway, Peter, thanks for a great show. Cheers.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Sean's been in touch and says, what so-called Conservatives don't understand is reform and now is the centre ground of politics in the UK. That's Sean in Bridlington. Centre ground? I'm not so sure. Mainstream, maybe? Is that a better word? Vincent says the country has given a vote of no confidence in Labour and Starmer. Election time, question mark. Believe me, Vincent, they will cling on to the last minute in 2029. There's no doubt about that now, I think, anyway. Jeff says, morning, Peter. Getting us to vote means the parties will have to do what they say. Otherwise, why waste our time when they don't follow through? Bring in fines like Australia, says Jeff. That's in Australia, your fines, I think it's something like $100, maybe it's a bit more, for not voting. and voting is compulsory there. I'm not sure about compulsory voting, to be honest, although I do think none of the above should be on the voting slip. But what I would do is basically just abolish postal voting, apart from people who genuinely can't make it there. I don't think it should be convenience. I think it should be for people who genuinely can't get out of the house. I don't think it's too much to ask to nip down to your local polling station if you can, if you're physically able to do so. Maggie in London says, "Morning, Peter. These results were not a wave yesterday. They were a tsunami. People are fed up with the two-party system, and let's not hear any more protest votes. All we were hearing was maybe, could be, we will look into it, blah, blah, blah. Enough is enough. Always enjoy your show, Peter," says Maggie. Thank you, Maggie. Brian says, "Absolutely love Nigel Farage saying if you're a diversity manager you should look for another job. Hallelujah. At last, common sense and the start of proper leadership with vision, ambition and backbone. Good times ahead. We can start to regain some pride in our country." It's Chris Scott from Nethern-on-the-Hill. Is that how you pronounce it? Nethern-on-the-Hill? Says the legacy parties are using the term protest vote as an attempt to smear Reform UK and its election success. But if voters no longer want to vote for parties that have presided over the ruination of our country, what should they do? Stay at home? Spoil their ballot papers? Says Chris. It's a very, very good point. Tad in Cambridge, just finally before the break, says, "I disagree with your earlier contributor that the Tories' decline started with Sunak, undesirable that he was. I would argue the rot began with John Major, after which very few good, solid Conservatives were selected by a plethora of wishy-washy local chairmen, as decreed by Conservative Central Office," says Tad in Cambridge. John Major is someone I'm afraid I will always admire because he did so much work in regard to the peace process in Northern Ireland, which allowed me to grow up in peace and a greater understanding of my fellow men and women just because they happen to be Catholics. There's a lot of admiration I have for him, but yeah, he was, I'm afraid, the very, very most generous interpretation, unlucky Prime Minister. But there we are. Then, of course, Tony Blair came in and swept up all the glory when the 1998 agreement was signed, but that's all ancient history. Nick, just before the break, actually, one more voice note. This is from Nick in Loughborough.
Morning, Peter. You don't really have to look far to see why Reform had such a momentous day yesterday when contributors like your MP Patrick Spencer goes on about populism. The people have turned, the worm has turned, and populism means that the people are telling the politicians what to do, and the entitled MPs from both of the major parties can't stand that. They've got used to telling us what to do over the last 5 years, and we've had enough of it. Roll on Reform, good on him. Have a good weekend, Peter.
Thank you, Nick. Some interesting thoughts there. Appreciate those. Keep the voice notes coming in. Give me a ring as well if you want to. 0344 499 1000. Plenty more calls and time for those between now and 12:30. After the break, we're going to talk to Di Davies. He's a former head of Royal Protection. All about this Prince Harry interview. It's a really, really interesting one. He's gone much further, I think, Prince Harry, than he has previously. But what are the facts around this? Because the lawyers and the judges keep saying, you keep bringing us the same arguments, we keep rejecting them, get over it, move on. We'll get Di Davies' perspective on this and yours as well after the break. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thanks to everybody who's been in touch on Twitter. I've just had a bit of a look at some of the messages there during the break. Jackie says the only thing Starmer gets is communist ideology. Mary says Starmer is totally out of touch. He does not connect with people from ordinary backgrounds. We get up and go to work and put food on the table and pay our bills. That keeps us going. He chooses not to get it. And Kanzi says the key isn't how many councillors they have, it's the ones where they've taken control of the councils. They have the opportunity to make a big difference in certain areas. Kanzi's absolutely right. It is partially to do with the number of councillors, it's to do with the 2 mayors as well, but also not just the 10 councils that Reform UK have taken control of, but there are more within the 23 that were elected on Thursday that Reform will have a say in, because they may be in a minority administration, they may have some sort of coalition or some sort of agreement with other parties as well. That frequently happens. We've got, I think, 6 of those 23 councils with no overall control. It'll also be very interesting to see what happens in Lincolnshire and indeed in Hull in regard to the elected mayors there. And of course on Tuesday we'll get Sarah Potchin will be sworn in as a new MP. That will happen in Parliament on Tuesday, so it'll be very, very interesting to see. Full coverage of course of that, I'm sure, on Talk. I'm back on Wednesday. I'm not on Monday and Tuesday. I'm back on Wednesday for PMQs. That'll be a lively one, I'm sure. Keir Starmer answering those questions, or at least being asked the questions. I'll be on that with Julia. Jeremy's actually doing Drive 4 days this week. He's doing Monday to Thursday rather than Monday to Wednesday, but I'll be back on Wednesday for Drive, and then the usual weekend shows, of course, next weekend. I want to talk about Prince Harry now, because this is another huge story that's happening. He's given an interview to BBC News, and this is part of what he said.
I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile.
An interview with Prince Harry there that the BBC did. Let's talk to Di Davies now. He is a former head of Royal Protection. Di, thank you for joining me this morning. This is, in some ways, an extraordinary interview, actually. Prince Harry going further, I think, than he has on a number of occasions, talking about his father's potential length of life, the fact that he won't speak to him because of this, and also the fact that we know that his appeal has been lost in regard to royal protection. Perhaps we can start with the nuts and bolts of this first, because Prince Harry has said that he would pay for the protection, but what he wants is policemen and women to protect him, not just private security guards. And there is a big difference there, isn't there? Because they have access to all sorts of systems and information and intelligence that that private security guards simply wouldn't have.
Well, a very good morning to you, Peter. It's
Good
nice
morning.
to be back with you. The truth is, he would get a liaison officer whenever he arrives in this country, whether officially or otherwise. The truth is, he, as far as I understand, currently would and has been given a Metropolitan Police Royalty Protection Liaison Officer. That officer would have full access to any security, any intelligence, and would be able to pass it on should there be such a situation that the Metropolitan Police and RAVAC felt that his security should have been or would be increased as a consequence of that intelligence, as with any member of the royal family, or indeed any member, VIP or otherwise. It would be the people given to him then would be appropriate to that risk. He wants armed protection, and he has a bee in his bonnet about this armed protection. But I can tell you, the times royalty protection officers have had to draw out their firearms in any given incident. Even when his father went into a riot, they didn't pull their revolvers out or their guns out. It's so rare that we have to put it in perspective. You don't need armed protection normally in this country. Yes, of course, there are occasions when a firearm is necessary, and they do carry them as a precaution. But as I say again, he wants all the Special Escort Group and all the other bits, and he can't have it all ways. If you look now currently, when I was in charge, we had over 22 members of the royal family, each one of them protected 24/7. That has been cut down drastically as a consequence, and you have to look at the overall picture. He has a bee in his bonnet and has had it for 5 years. As the household have said, this has been tested ad infinitum in the court. All the evidence has been given before learned judges. They've looked carefully at it and decided lawfully Ravik are the people that the Home Office appoint to make these decisions.
They're the committee that assess all this and make the decisions. And the fact is that he's lost the argument here, hasn't he? Do you think because he's lost the argument, both legally and otherwise, that he's chosen to lash out now?
Well, he has with great respect to him, he has a habit of lashing out, as we know and we've seen. Not only this, but he normally blames the press, blames everybody other than himself. Now, if I wanted security and if I wanted to carry on security, I would keep my opinions mostly to myself. I'd keep a much lower profile. I wouldn't visit Nigeria. I wouldn't visit dangerous parts of the world like Colombia, all of whom I visited, and I frankly wouldn't go there with or without Nigerian or Colombian protection. So you've got to put this in perspective. He has a bee in his bonnet and had a number of bees, but actually to now ask for reconciliation with his family after what he has said, and he's still saying it, and it's everybody else's fault apart from his. Frankly, I think sometimes he talks absolute nonsense.
Well, just on that point in regard to reconciliation and actually bringing Meghan and his 2 children to the UK, let's just have another look at this interview. This is another part of the interview that Prince Harry gave the BBC.
I want to see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done.
Talking there about his wife and 2 children, saying he can't see himself bringing them to the UK at all. I mean, he's essentially saying there, isn't he, Di, that there's no way the King and Queen, unless they come to him, which is highly unlikely, will actually see their grandchildren.
Well, that's his choice. He lives in Los Angeles, and I worked with the authorities, the police and the Secret Service in LA a few years ago now. It is far, far, far more dangerous than anything in our country, and I think, frankly, it's nonsensical to think that he thinks he wouldn't be safe here. All his cousins, aunties, uncles, all the rest of them live in this country. They all have had children. Most of them have never had protection, even in the height when the Provisional IRA and others were threatening our royals. They, particularly in my time, they were not ever attacked. Yes, there were 1 or 2 schemes against the current king and again against Princess Diana and the prince as he was then. Yes, but they're foiled. The truth is, he is no more at risk than anyone else of the members of the royal family, but he seems to think he should be singled out more than anyone. The security and risk assessment, as I understand it currently, does not warrant him getting it, but he does get it if he came here on behalf of his father or any other royal function. He would get it and has had it. And when he comes here, I say again, the Metropolitan Police will liaise with his protection officers, who are all former protection officers. Let's be quite clear, they're very expert people.
Yes.
The fact they may not have firearms, frankly, doesn't give much concern to me as far as my intelligence and knowledge goes.
Di, really interesting talking to you. Appreciate you speaking to us. Thank you very much. That's Di Davies there, who's a former head of Royal Protection. What do you think about what Prince Harry is saying in those interviews? Do you agree with what Di is saying? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. Tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. Plenty of those coming in. We'll play some more of those as the show goes on between now and 12:30. Or you can send me a text message via WhatsApp or indeed what's the other thing? Voice notes and phone calls, of course. 0344 499 1000. Forgot about the three things that the main number does. Tech Up Dave has his head in his hands. He turned 52 yesterday, and we still have birthday cake. It's marvellous. Listen, there's lots coming in, and we're going to talk to John and Sutton in just a second after the break. Stay with us.
Making sure that they're in 2-star, 3-star, 4-star hotels is attracting people. We're basically creating a magnet for these illegal migrants to come here into this country.
So was that a yes? Still stick them in tents in the middle of a cold spell?
But the point
it's just inhumane. Where are you coming from? How far have we gone down the drain as a population that for the most part care?
Jim,
the most part care.
The point is, I think that many people, of course, do care, and nobody would say that children should be allowed to be in tents across the country in that way. But fundamentally, we have allowed millions of people to come into this country illegally. Many of them, some of them, a proportion of them, on small boats.
It's not
millions illegally, not millions on small boats.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Loads of messages coming in. I've been very busy on Twitter in the last minute or two in the break there. Another bloke from Stoke says Patrick Spencer and his chums. Lots of reaction to this interview. There's Patrick Spencer, who was on at the very start of the programme. He's one of the Conservative MPs. And another bloke from Stoke says Patrick Spencer and his chums just don't get it. We former Tories are not looking for a reason to vote for you anymore. We have a replacement in Reform UK. Or on the sneering reference to populism, it confirms the ruling elite are toast. Helena says, good morning, Peter, love your show. Starmer doesn't get it. It's obvious from his speech, I'm afraid. And on that point, I actually tweeted out before the show, I said, do you believe Keir Starmer when he says he gets it and will change? And Sharon says, I wouldn't believe him if he says today was Saturday. I mean, that's pretty straightforward there, Sharon. There's no doubting your opinion on that. Sandy has been in touch from Suffolk and says, hi Peter, Patrick Spencer is my MP and a huge improvement on Dr Dan Poulter, who we call the Invisible Man. Patrick works very hard in this constituency and says all the right things. Unfortunately for me, his party has let him and us down. So despite Patrick being a good Tory MP, I'll be voting Reform because Reform will be good for the country. The Tories have proved over 14 years that they are not. Very, very interesting one there from Sandy. So thank you for that. Let's speak to John in Sutton. He's giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. John, what do you make of all this?
Oh, hello, Peter.
Hi there.
Yeah, well, the truth is, what happened yesterday, really, Peter, is the death of the Conservative Party. It really is. I'm not exaggerating.
No, I don't think you're exaggerating at all, John. I think there are a number of Conservatives who believe you. There's a very long-serving Conservative advisor who I know, a lot more service than me, he just said, it's over. Just messaged me this morning and just said, it is over for the Conservatives.
It is, Peter. And really and truly, they can save themselves a lot of time a lot of money and a lot of embarrassment if they just dissolve the party. And the true Conservatives, the true patriots, come and join Reform. And the rest of them, who don't like Reform, can go and join the Lib Dems or the Greens. Because they let us down so badly, Peter. They're never going to win back the support they had in the past. The millions that have turned to Reform. Reform of the future now.
Well, and they're present as well, John, certainly from many of those different council areas as well. What would you... I mean, if you were Kemi Badenoch, if you could talk to Kemi Badenoch right now, John, what would you say?
I would say do the sensible thing and join Reform. Because they can talk tough all day, Peter. They can say whatever they want. We just don't believe them.
Yeah.
The only way we will ever believe them is if they prove that all that tough talk by coming and joining Reform. Otherwise, they can jog on.
When you say
believe them.
When you say join Reform, what would that be simply dissolving the Conservative Party? I don't think that's going to happen, John. But I mean, because there are some people within Reform UK, both privately and publicly, they will say, look, we like former Conservatives who have maybe worked for the party, volunteered, members of the Conservatives joining Reform, but we're also a bit suspicious of them as well. What would your sort of model of how it would work be, John?
Yeah, well, that is exactly what I'm saying. I mean, don't forget, Peter, I'd say about 90% of those that are voting Reform were once Conservative voters.
Yeah.
Maybe not 90%.
Well, there's quite a sizable number anyway, but it's about Labour as well, isn't it, John? There are a lot of people, as we've seen from those results, there are loads of Labour areas where people are just fed up with Labour.
They are, and Peter, we're going to take more votes off of Labour than we will off the Conservatives at the end of the day. I personally, it's only my opinion, I believe the Labour vote will collapse before the next election. I really believe that. Next year, we've got elections round here, and everyone round here is talking about Reform.
Yeah.
This is in Surrey. Sutton is in Surrey.
Yeah.
So this isn't over by a long stretch. There's a lot more to come from Reform.
Yeah.
And I personally think that the Tories are finished now. And they should admit it and do whatever they think's best.
Sutton's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you've had Paul Scully was your MP, I think he was the Conservative, was your MP at one stage.
Yeah, but here in Wallington and Carshalton, we had a Conservative. We had Tom Brake for years.
Yes, a Lib Dem. Yeah.
Then they lost it to Conservative chap.
Yeah.
Elliot something his name was.
Keck, I think.
Then they got it back again. Then they got it back again. But at the last election, Reform got thousands of votes in Carshalton and Wallington and Mitcham, around that area, the Surrey area.
And what when you talk to those people, you say everybody here is talking about Reform UK, what are they kind of saying? Because so many people don't think about politics day to day, John. You do, of course, and lots of viewers and listeners to this station do, because they're interested in it, and that's why they watch and listen, and that's great, apart from obviously the brilliant presenters. But John, what is it that people are saying about Reform? What's on the tip of their tongue in regard to the issues that they care about?
Well, can I be honest with you?
You can.
It's immigration.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one thing, really. And the NHS. You know, too many people let into the country, rent's too high, and they think that Reform are best placed to deal with it. They don't trust any of the others.
Yeah.
That's the people that I speak to.
And I get that, John. And I do wonder when I'm talking to, professional politicians, as I do quite a lot, when you're sort of both privately and publicly, and you're sort of saying, there is this huge problem. It has been there for 25 years, longer. In fact, I don't know if you heard Patrick Spencer earlier, John, who was saying that in 1997, 75,000 people came to the UK. Last year it was over 1 million. This is clearly an issue. No one's racist to talk about it. Some people are, but very few people. This is a major change in regard to our country, and people are saying, actually, hold on a second, the NHS issue you're talking about there, John, absolutely linked to, guess what, there are more people. Maybe we should do something about this. And they just, to me anyway, they just don't get it.
They don't, Peter. What they don't realise, Peter, is that people are actually frightened by the change in demographics and that, Peter. It is genuine fear. It's not, a phobia. It's just like, what on earth is happening? It's happening too far.
Yeah, really interesting thoughts there, John. Thank you very much for them. Appreciate that. Let's hear a voice note from Sean in Grimsby.
Morning, Peter. Keir Starmer don't get it, mate, and he'll never get it. And the reason being is because when you watch him speak after these interviews, he's like, oh yeah, I'll stand by all the decisions I made the right decisions. Look, the vast majority of decent people in this country know that it is wrong to take money off old people and disabled and give it as play money for young foreign men who we don't want here. Now, that's wrong in every way, shape or form, mate, and he just doesn't get that. Great show, mate.
Thank you very much indeed, Sean. Thanks to Andrea in Salisbury, says, Reform really performed well, but I just know Labour and Number 10 will be patting themselves on the back and seeing this as a small victory for them as they sleazily postponed many other local elections. Reform's headcount should have been far higher, says Andrea in Salisbury. Andrea, I think you've got a point there. They obviously postponed things because they're merging some of the different councils. There's a reorganisation and so on. You'll get your chance. You'll get your chance, and I think by doing that, maybe that reorganisation was needed, but I think they're perhaps storing up problems for the future. I don't see Reform UK going anywhere anytime soon. I don't see this as a high watermark. I don't see this as a blip. I don't see this as something which is unique. I think this is, well, it's unique so far, but I think there's going to be a lot more of this to come. I think Reform are in the ascendancy, and I think they may well just be storing up problems for the future. And thanks for your kind words at the start of your message, which I better not read out, otherwise I'll get bashed. Gian says, well, it's very kind, so thank you, Andrew. Gian says, hi, Peter. For many people, it goes deeper. For example, I had Davey. Just because he doesn't like President Trump, he thinks UK voters must agree too. Then some want him to ban him from speaking in the UK Parliament on the state visit. Many voters are patriots. Many in Parliament don't like that. They are more Davos than Westminster, and everybody else matters to them more than their own citizens, says Jane. JB in Aberdeenshire says, the ex-councillor who we had on earlier on, what did you do to meet constituents' expectations, says JB. Well, JB, I do think that there are quite a few local councillors who work very hard, and they're often victims of, from all parties, they're victims of what the National Party does. But listen, people weren't happy. That's fine, and democracy happened, and that's where things are now. Stuart in Tunbridge Wells says, could you imagine if people did trust the Tories again, only for them to feel in the same way? We were back to the last year's protest would look like a Sunday school picnic. It's best to keep them out. Philippa has given me a ring about Prince Harry. Lots of people want to talk about him as well. Philippa, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Basically, Harry needs to just be quiet. Watch what he says, because it's not doing him any favours. He says he's patriotic. He says he loves his country. If he loves his country so much, he needs to come back to it and support his dad when his dad is so ill. He needs to be part of the working royal family again and bring his kids over here and be here. It may not happen, but then he'd get his security back. He'd get all the things back that he's worrying about. But he needs to take some humble pie, eat some humble pie, profusely apologise to his family, profusely apologise to the British public, and sort himself out. That's what he needs to do.
I completely agree with every single word you've just said, Philippa. How likely is it, do you think, any of that happens?
Probably like 0%, because Harry will not eat humble pie. He's too proud. And Meghan certainly wouldn't eat any humble pie because she thinks she's above everybody else. Yeah. And that's where Harry's got the problem. It's the influence of his wife. If Harry was his own man still and stood up to his wife, then he wouldn't be in the situation he's in at all.
I like the old Harry, Philippa.
In his life.
I like the old Harry.
He hasn't got any purpose in his life.
Oh, we're just losing Philippa there. Have we got her? You there, Philippa? Oh, it's a bad line. Let's see. Oh, no, you're back. Let's see if we can maybe get... Are you there? Sorry, go ahead.
Basically, I was saying that he hasn't got any purpose in America apart from trying to make money. You know, he needs to come back to this country and be able to support his family and his dad.
Okay.
He's like a lost soul at the moment.
I feel that way too, Philip. I actually just feel sorry for him, really, to be honest. I mean, look, maybe he's taking a huge stance. Maybe, I think he really believes what he's saying, but he's wrong. He's just, you just need to take the evidence of what the court has said time and time and time again. It ain't going to happen, mate. And honestly, I'm very lucky in that I have a very good, very good, strong and incredibly important relationship with my father, and I'm delighted. And he's about the same age as I'm almost exactly the same age as Harry. You know, my dad is almost exactly the same age as the King, and I know there is a big generational gap, but I'm just so glad that we're close, and it makes me sad when I think of people who aren't close to their parents when they could be.
You can't respect somebody who doesn't respect his own family, and this is what's happened with Harry, because he's just opened his mouth too often and said things that he should have kept private, and he's created a wedge between him and his dad and his family, and it's just so sad, and it's wrong, and he's digging a hole for himself that he now can't get out of.
Yeah. Philippa, you talk a lot of sense. Thanks for the call this morning. That's Philippa in Dorset there. He gave me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Plenty to talk about on Harry, on the local elections, and also junior doctors given the strike ballot before the pay offer has even been revealed. This is the British Medical Association saying that the Health Secretary has not been able to give them the pledge they were looking for less than a year after a 22% pay rise. We'll talk to the Health Secretary tomorrow in this programme, actually at 10:30. But half an hour more of discussion. You get involved too, please. 0344.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Really appreciate your company here for the next half an hour. Lots to discuss, including junior doctors given a strike ballot before a pay offer is even revealed. Didn't we give them 22% rise last year? Yeah, I think we did. Local elections as well. The Reform Quake, Reform UK up 677 councillors. Let me know your reaction to all of that. And Prince Harry as well. Lots of people getting in touch about that. The numbers 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can also send me a voice note, less than a minute please, or you can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring of course on 0344 499 1000. There is time for calls between now and the end of the show, so we will get to those no doubt. Lots to discuss. Be sure you stay with us for the next half an hour here on Talk. Thank you to James, who says the Conservative Party MPs were split between those on the centre-right and on the Liberal centre-left. Voters have moved on. The centre-right now vote Reform and the centre-left vote Lib Dem. All the blame lies with their MPs constantly boasting that they're a broad church party. I mean, James is absolutely right. And if you look at the numbers, as I mentioned, the Reform UK number up 677, Liberal Democrats up 163, up to 370 seats of the 1,600 won yesterday. They'll be very pleased with that. The Lib Dems, it's not the whole story, it's not the main story, that's Reform, but it is nonetheless part of this election. And you look at the Conservatives down 676 seats at 317. On Prince Harry, this person's been in touch on Twitter to say, I agree with the lady caller. If Harry came back, that was Philippa, who's with us just before the news there. If Harry came back and publicly apologised to his father and to the British people, he would be welcomed. We all remember the awful death of Princess Diana and those two lads following the coffin. Sandy says the Prince of Montecito could be a politician. They're hopeless at reading the room too. Chloe says, Harry could come to the UK anytime. They've said they provide security. The fact is he doesn't want to, and neither does his insufferable wife. This is all entirely self-inflicted. And one more tweet from Sarah, who says, in Wales, after 25 years of uninterrupted Labour, every government-controlled area is an unholy mess, bottom of every measurable league. I look forward to the wipeout of the Senedd, and Drakeford in particular being thoroughly rejected and ejected. That is the former First Minister of Wales that Sarah is talking about there, Mark Drakeford. He's now the Finance Minister, actually. And yes, Labour have been in power there for all of the time that Wales has had devolution since 1999. I think a reform quake is coming there as well. We'll maybe talk a bit more about Wales as time goes on with these programmes. As I say, lots more time for calls, texts and tweets. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, I want to speak to Roy Lilly, who's a former NHS Trust Chairman, about this story about the British Medical Association announcing yesterday that they are going to strike again before next year's pay offer has even been announced. We're talking a lot this morning during the show, Roy, about people reading the room and getting it. Does the BMA?
No, I don't think they do. And you know, Peter, it's kind of rude, isn't it, to say what I'm just about to say. It's kind of indelicate.
We're the home of free speech, Roy. You're allowed to say what's on your mind.
Well, it's just that you and I had a conversation a couple of years ago when I told you so, which is the sort of inelegant, arrogant bit. But
That's okay.
Yeah, I did say to you, I don't think this is going to cut it. This was a 2-year deal. And I said to you at the time, they need a 3-year deal to get back to full pay restoration. And they didn't do it. They originally went on strike for 35%. They settled for something just around 20-odd%. It was a very much a hybrid deal because it included some of the money that the previous government, the Tories, had put into the pay settlement, other bits and pieces. Junior doctors were then renamed as resident doctors, and they all sort of went away cuddly and happy that Labour had given them what they wanted. But I said at the time, the BMA will be back for more because this does not give them pay restoration. What has happened now is the doctors are saying, well, the 2-year deal was fine, but we want the third part of the third deal, which will sort out the pay restoration up to this year. And of course, because we've had to wait an extra year for it, we now want the effect of inflation on our wage packets for the last 2 years. And there was a representative of the BMA talking on another channel this morning, and he got himself into a complete muddle, didn't understand the numbers. But it looks like the top line of this is that BMA are going to want 50% on what they've got now.
That's just, I mean, you cannot say to a country where everybody's hurting. I mean, Keir Starmer talks about wages are going up and things are getting better for people. I mean, a 50% pay rise for doctors who've already got 22%. I mean, that just absolute pie in the sky.
I agree, but the problem with this is I think the junior doctors, or the resident doctors, we must call them now, have got their tails up because they knew perfectly well the damage that they were doing to the NHS, particularly to waiting lists, by going on strike. They've suddenly discovered their power. And there's been a big change in the BMA. The BMA used to be a bit of an old geezer's luncheon club, to be honest. But now it's not. It's a very modern and aggressive trade union. It's been taken over by a group called Doctors' Votes. And these doctors have used the constitution of the BMA quite properly and quite legally, but they've just become active. They've got themselves on key chairmanship roles in the BMA. They're running the BMA now. They're much more militant, and they've done really what Momentum did to the Labour Party in the days of Jeremy Corbyn. They've just taken it over. And now it is no longer sort of the old geezer's luncheon club at all. It's a very modern, aggressive trade union. And my concern is that once again, they're going to hold Labour's feet to the fire, or the government's feet to the fire. This time it's a Labour government's feet to the fire. And we're going to have another winter of strikes. I can see it coming.
But we were told, not by you. You did tell me so. That is correct. But we were told, let's just get this over with. Let's just give them the money. Let's just make it all go away. And this strike is going to go nowhere. In fact, we're talking to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, tomorrow on this programme. So do tune in for that. But I mean, I'm going to ask him about this and say, their strategy, anyway, appears to me, and you're the expert, Roy, but their strategy appeared to be, let's just pay them off. Let's get rid of it. Obviously, doctors on strike, it's a bad look. It's very bad for patients as well. It's bad both in how it looks and how it is actually for so many people, and care is a big, big issue. We've got the waiting list down. Everything's going to be marvellous. Suddenly, now you've got people talking about 50% pay rises and even more strikes. Where does this all end, Roy?
It ends badly. I mean, the waiting lists actually, they're coming down by a tiny amount. I mean, we're not really creating the headroom we should be. There's almost the same number of people, 1.5 million people every month joining the waiting list, and the NHS is doing about 1.5 million, perhaps a bit less actually, treatments, getting people off the waiting list. It needs a really concerted effort. Now, of course, we've got the insanity, which was never in any of the Labour Party manifestos, of a reorganisation of the NHS. Budgets are being cut by 50%. NHS England has been turfed out the door. We've lost a lot of very good senior people. And of course, if you're working in the NHS now and you're a manager and you're trying to run the thing, you're looking over your shoulder thinking, how long have I got a job for? When am I going to be made redundant? I mean, everybody's taken their eye off the ball. It's the most ludicrous thing to do. Wasn't in the manifesto, not agreed. There's no impact assessment on any of it. It's just that Streeting wanted to do it. And so, we've got ourselves, he has got himself into a real pickle over this.
And in terms of the impact on patients that strikes would have, I mean, we all remember what that was, what happened there. I just wonder, I mean, this is even before the pay offer comes out. I just wonder if there's any sort of preemptive action that the government can take here to say, hold on a second, let's reach some accommodation before these strikes go ahead. How likely you think that might be?
I think it's very unlikely. I think Streeting will not get the support from the Treasury. I really don't, and I can't see really where the money's coming from. And the government don't want to spark off another round of expensive pay rises across the public sector. Indeed, the nurses have not yet had this year's pay increase, which should have come on the 1st of April. It's been delayed. The pay review bodies for the coming year are yet to report. That's been delayed as well. So the whole of the public sector pay agenda is really pretty chaotic, and no one seems to have got a grip with it. But I really can't see Streeting giving in again. But I hark back to what I said previously. I think he had a pretty soft deal last time. It was partly funded by what the Tories were going to do. He added a bit to it in the second year. But now we're in the third year and the doctors are saying, well, we haven't got what we wanted. And I'm telling you, I hate to say this, they will go on strike. Make no doubt about it.
Okay. Well, when they do, you can come back and say, I told you so again, Roy. Thank you very much indeed, Roy Lilly there, who is former NHS Trust Chairman. Appreciate you joining us this morning. And some breaking news from Australia. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese's centre-left Labour Party, has won the federal election. That's according to the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and that's the various networks projecting that victory for him, an Albanese victory for him. Maybe you're in Australia, maybe Shane in Sydney, he's always watching this programme. Shane, what do you think? Let us know your thoughts. Drop me a text. Shane is a loyal viewer late at night, although maybe he's watching the ABC at the moment. Anyway, that is the breaking news, that the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's centre-left Labour Party has won the federal election there, according to the ABC. Lots of people getting in touch, including Andy from Thatcham, who says these Conservatives still don't get it, do they? They are not wanted. Their record over the last 14 years has been dismal. Promises made and promises broken on every government we had during those years. They kept the borders open for everyone and thought the voter wouldn't challenge them. They now will fade into obscurity, as reform will now give us true right-leaning politics. JB has been in touch again, talking about the councillor we spoke to earlier, who rang in, Conservative councillor who's lost his seat. He says we have an example here of a career councillor, exactly why Reform UK did so well. I'm not sure that that councillor who we spoke to earlier would agree with that, JB, but happy to read out your perspective. Dave in South Gloucester says the mainstream politicians and their supporters just do not get it. Their arrogance and assumption that we all voted Reform as a protest and we'll all revert back to them is patronising. It's treating us with contempt. 10 years of inertia, promises never delivered from the Conservatives. Now we have lies, hypocrisy and a downward spiral to economic and societal chaos with Labour, who think that if they double down on their disastrous policies, we will return to support them. Trust in the legacy parties has been completely destroyed, says Dave, and weasel words and vague promises will not restore it anytime soon. Dave there speaking for, I would imagine, many people. We'll take some more calls, texts, tweets, voice notes, smoke signals, telepathic messages. However you want to get in touch, feel free to do so, and we will make sure that we talk to as many people as possible as we can before the end of the programme here on Talk.
The thing is this, if he was coming over to visit his father, the king, he would get royal protection because he'd be going to the royal estates. So he would be absolutely fine. If he was coming to do proper business, like a state visit, although he's not a working royal anymore, again, there are provisions made from that. But he decided to go be a private citizen in a different country. So if he can now demand legally to have armed protection, then what's stopping Beyonce from doing the same? What's stopping Richard Gere from saying he needs the same? I need my people to carry guns.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch, including Rex, who has tweeted me to say, "Hi Peter, I'm from the United States. I've been watching Talk for a few months. Great, brilliant to have people from right around the world watching and listening to the station, so thank you. My mum was a war bride, born and raised in Oxford. Beautiful part of the world. I lived there for a few years. So glad to see that people have sent the message. They are tired of politicians giving away the nation to every third worlder on earth. Good show," says Rex. Rotten Lass says, I also lived in Rotten for a few weeks actually, near Swindon. Rotten Lass says, "Spencer still doesn't understand," this is Patrick Spencer, the Conservative MP we spoke to earlier, "he still doesn't understand that when he uses populist as a pejorative, he is bad-mouthing democracy. In case he doesn't know, populist means popular with the majority. That is how voting works." Llama Chameleon, great name, says, "It's too late. Johnson had the chance to steer things round for the Conservatives, but instead decided to lock people in their homes for a bad cold while importing millions from the third world despite his tens of thousands post-Brexit pledge. He then ripped up the minx to accords, sparking a war." I'm not sure he would agree with that, but there we are. Pete said, I'm not sure I agree with that, but anyway, interesting thoughts. Pete says, "All I gleaned from the interview with Patrick Spencer is a very weak man who is afraid of change that can only debate by name-calling and pigeonholing a large part of society because they have the audacity to have a different view to him or his party. Petulance and privilege is not a good look at all." We'll talk to Andy in the East Midlands in a second, but I just want to get a couple of voice notes on first. Firstly, from Sam.
"Hi Peter, great show. It's not the fact that people are voting for reform because they completely trust them. There's going to be some doubt. I mean, come on. But it's just the fact they don't trust the Labour or Conservatives. And do you want to know why? The one thing that really grates with a lot of British people is when politicians don't answer the bloomin' question. They just spin and detract and distract and blame. And we're fed up of it."
Sam, I get fed up as well when politicians don't answer the question. James is in London and has this voice note.
"Hello, Peter. James and Maggie Moo, London. Just watching that Conservative bloke on the telly, and they still don't get it, going on about Trump. Trump's putting his people first. He's putting America first. People over there are sure happy. I wish they would listen to the people here. That 2525 was the start of the peaceful revolution. It's all changing now. People are all coming out. And I think you're going to get more and more people saying, yeah, I can speak up now. You're right, politics is changing."
James, thank you. Anna in Surrey.
Hi Peter, Anna, sorry. We've got you on at work and we're all just listening to your political strategist. And what we would say to you is, I've been listening to the media since the vote. You're all overcomplicating it. It's as simple as this. We're sick of the Liberals. We're sick of what they've done to our country, and it's too late to bring it all back. This is the way things are going across Europe and America. The Liberals are done. Stop overcomplicating it. They do their Liberal agenda and they don't listen to the voter. Cheers, guys.
Very interesting thoughts there, Anna. Thank you, and hello to everybody you're working with. Thanks for listening and making us your choice. Karen, now.
Hi, Peter. I think also people are realising that we're actually in the fight for our very survival, and this is why Reform were doing so well. They're our only hope for British citizens to be treated like British citizens and not second-class citizens as they're being treated by Labour and the Conservatives. I mean, the Conservatives did nothing for 14 years. That's atrocious. I mean, the rot set in with Boris Johnson, to be honest, and I don't know why everyone loved him so much, because he absolutely sold us down the river. But we're in a fight for our survival, and this is a message to Labour. Wake up, we've had enough, and that is why we're voting Reform. We're not far right, we're just right. We know what's going on, we can see it, and we're fearful, and we've had enough.
Karen, thank you for that. It's really been a fascinating show today. Really interesting hearing from people. Let's hear from another one, Andy in the East Midlands. I understand it's the first time you've given us a ring, Andy, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Peter.
Well,
good afternoon to you. Outstanding show as always.
Very good, thank you. Very good to have you on the show. What are your thoughts today, Andy?
Well, my thoughts, it's really the victory by Reform at this election is not an accident. we voted reform. I'm a long-standing, a lifelong Tory supporter.
Okay.
A Conservative voter. And my first time of voting against the Tories was over Brexit.
Okay.
Now, they didn't get it then, and they still don't get it now. I am educated. I run my own business. I've done so for many years. So I'm not a protest voter. I did not vote in protest. I voted reform because I believe reform is the only party currently that has the genuine interest of the British people at heart. Conservative moved away from true conservatism of the great old days of the Thatcher government and to a lesser extent major government. They are now everything to everyone, the woke ideology, this green energy, madness, etc., the taxation policies, the whole thing. The only hope for conservative right now, as far as I can see, go into the future, is to merge with reform.
You think that's it? You think it's just
to be the leader?
You think, Andy, it's just over for the Conservatives then?
It absolutely is, because they will not get a voter like me, a diehard voter like me back anytime soon, if ever. And I'm sure the story has been repeated all over the country. They've lost the core base of Conservative votes, and they ain't going to get it back.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Andy. Listen, thank you. The only reason I'm ending the call is because we've run out of time on the show. But Andy, it's your first call, but don't make it your last. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who has contacted the show today, whether in no matter what form you have contacted us. And we'll have more of a debate tomorrow. I'm on between 10 and 1. We've got the co-chairman of the Conservative Party is going to be on. We've got the someone from Reform. We've got Stella Creasy who's going to be on. She doesn't do talk very often, let me tell you. She's going to be on at 12 o'clock. We've also got Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. Loads of different people talking tomorrow, so do join me between 10 and 1. Working on the show today have been Finlay Knowles, the producer. Tommy Bateson has been the assistant producer. Chris Jacobs set up the programme as a setup producer. Dave Rhodes, the technical operator, very happy birthday for yesterday. Dave was 52, doesn't look a day over 51. Take up Dave there. Neha Saravanchi and Davis Fang have been the visual producers. Gizem Hilaj has been the video editor, and Dean Spencer, the weekend editor. Coming up is our game day exclusive, Aston Villa versus Fulham. It'll be presented by Reshman Chowdhury and followed by the game day live from 2:30 with Adrian Durham. Stay tuned as we bring you live and exclusive commentary from the Premier League and the EFL. Also, Coventry versus Middlesbrough is on Talk Sport 2 as well, so fill your boots with all the different sport that is on there. I will see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Lots to discuss. Top lineup of politicians. See you then.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.